Welcome to episode 16 of my guide to video game history. The year is 1989, and at this time the gaming world will be treated to the revolution of portable gaming. Of course, portable gaming had been around for years, with such devices as the Nintendo Game & Watch, the Microvision, and the eclectic range of tabletop arcade machines released over the years. But these in the main were single-purpose built games, and far too simple to ever hope to offer the home gaming experience. But in 1989 this was all about to change, with three contenders entering the arena to win the portable gaming crown. In this brave new frontier, only one machine would survive, with the other two not only being beaten but destroyed into dust. So who were these contender hopefuls? The first was Nintendo's Gameboy, a breeze-block looking machine with only a monochrome 4-colour display that could only play simplified NES games. Then you had the Atari's massive beast of a machine called the Lynx, developed by Epyx Games and with many of the key geniuses behind the Amiga. The machine boasted a full-colour screen and similar architecture to the Amiga underneath its powerful hood. Finally, there was the Sega Game Gear, a wonder of design offering the power of the Sega Master System in the palm of your hand. Of these contenders, only one would walk away, owning the handheld market, which was of course the Nintendo Game Boy. But how did such an underspec'd machine win over its Goliath opponents? There were many factors, but it started with Nintendo's secret weapon of having one of the greatest video game designers and engineers the world has ever seen in charge of its project. Gunpei Yokoi had been the genius designer behind the highly successful Game & Watch series, and so had years of experience already under his belt in the handheld market. You see, Gunpei understood that the most important thing in the handheld market was portability, which means not only does a device have to be small enough and light enough to carry around, but energy efficient enough not to gobble up the batteries. Because of this, Gunpei had to fight hard within Nintendo and his development team to keep the monochrome display, as he knew the colour display would use up too much energy. By 1987, Nintendo had developed their machine, and they started out issuing development kits to their trusted developers to work on the device. Initial feedback was good, with many being impressed with its small, for the time, design and impressive battery life. Also, the monochrome LCD screen, being 160 by 144 pixels, could offer quite impressive detail, and through clever techniques developers were able to give more shades of grey. Of course, not all were happy with it. The machine was not very good at scrolling and would quickly blur if you moved things too fast or had too much going on at the same time. But basically the machine was great, but its huge success was also down to a certain game that came bundled with the machine that won over gamers and non-gamers alike. Not since the early days of Pong and Pac-Man had a game truly won over gamers and non-gamers alike. That game, of course, was called Tetris, although how the game came about and came to be on the machine was not easy. Our story of Tetris begins in June 1984 in Moscow, Russia, with a gentle giant called Alexei Pajitnov, who loved mathematics and puzzles and worked at the computer center at Moscow's Academy of Science, working on early artificial intelligence programs and voice recognition software. But Alexei's hobbies were puzzles and riddles, and one of his favourites was the wooden puzzle game called Pentamones, which was a game that had been around since 1907 and invented by the American mathematician Solomon Gollum. The puzzle was that you had a series of shapes made up of 5 squares that must be pieced together correctly to make a rectangle. Alexei loved the concept and could see how he could use his knowledge of computers to do a variant where shapes would plummet from the heavens and where the player must quickly rotate the shapes and place them appropriately. Also, to make the game have purpose. If a row was completed, the line would disappear. Alexei started work on his idea, but quickly discovered that 5-block shapes were far too complex for the speed that the game would need to be. So he simplified the shape variants to just 4 blocks, giving his game a new name of Tetris, which is the ancient Greek word for four, which is tetra. The first version of Tetris was written on Alexei's work computer called the Electronica 60. The machine had no graphics and he had to use the square brackets to make up the boxes. Alexei knew his game was good, but it would have to have graphics. He needed to get his game onto the brand new IBM PC machine, but personally he had no experience of using the machine. Alexei therefore turned to a 16-year-old hacker who had helped Alexei before doing bug testing. Vadim Gerasimov was a computer expert self-taught who had learnt many languages, including languages that the new IBM PC used. The game was quickly converted by Vadim in 1985, and then Alexei and Vadim gave the game away to friends and colleagues. Quickly the game spread through Moscow like an aggressive virus, addicting computer engineers across Russia. By 1986, the game came to the attention of the Hungarian-born Robert Stein, whose company Andromeda in London specialised in finding games written by developers in the East and finding Western publishers to release them. But dealing with Russia would be tough, with a series of misleading telex exchanges between Alexei, who spoke little English, and Robert, who spoke no Russian. This resulted in Stein selling the rights of the game to Microsoft and Spectrum Holobyte for the home computer market, and the game going on to be a bestseller in England and the US, winning awards. All this with Stein not actually having signed a deal yet. To make things even more confusing, Microsoft and Software Holobyte, believing themselves to own the game, resold the contracts to Atari for the coin-op markets and Nintendo to do a console game for the NES. Fast forward to 1988, and Nintendo were now interested in buying the handheld rights to the game and sent out Henk Rogers to buy the rights from Alexei and Russia. It was at this point that they discovered that Russia were unaware of all these variants that had been sold of their game, and Henk realised that Nintendo had an opportunity to legally own the rights directly and so cut out the competition. After much complex negotiations and legal wranglings that I won't go into here, Nintendo walked away with the rights to the home console and the handheld market, leaving Atari with the arcade coin-op and Microsoft and Spectrum Holobyte with the home computer market. But on to the game itself, and Tetris' simplistic nature and compelling addictive gameplay was a match made in heaven for the Game Boy, which meant that on its release in April the 21st in 1989 in Japan, it sold 300,000 units on its first day alone, and ultimately selling almost 120 million units across the globe during its life cycle, becoming one of the most popular game consoles of all time. This phenomenon was in part due to the global appeal of Tetris and how it won over non-gamers and gamers alike, people who bought the machine purely to play Tetris. The Tetris game would be bundled actually with the console in the US and Europe, and also Tetris would allow two-player action by connecting a link cable that allowed gamers to play head-to-head, upping the game's excitement even more. America would see the machine released in July the 31st, 1989 at the affordable $89. And over in UK and Europe we would see the machine a year later, on September the 28th, 1990, selling for $69.99. But of course, the success of the Game Boy cannot be just attributed to one game alone. It was a slew of other games released for the machine that would continue the machine's dominance and success. The launch titles for the machine were all strong and were as follows. First, there was Super Mario Land, which took all that was great about the NES classic original, but boiled it down to just the essence of what made it great. The game was brilliant and a worthy addition to the Mario canon of works, even if Miyamoto had no involvement in the game. Its music as well, by veteran game composer Hirokazu Tanaka, would stay in your head for ages as well. Next, there was the bat and ball game Alleyway. I'm a huge fan of this game as it takes things back to basics, unlike the power-up heavy Arkanoids and its clones. Instead, this is all just about the bat and ball, and ingenious brick layouts and clever twists to make every screen a delight and surprise you, pushing you always to get on to that next screen. Mario did kind of feature in the game as well, although you only ever saw him entering the bat and leaving it when he died. Then there was baseball, and also tennis released for the Game Boy. Both were based on the popular NES sport games that had been released years earlier. Both had been huge hits on the NES and were simple but fun, and so were enjoyed by gamers and a worthy addition to the launch title lineup. That's the end of part A, please go on to part B.